Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Life Leadership in Pursuit of Greatness YouTube channel. I'm Tim Lovell.
And I'm Dwayne Mathis.
We are excited you guys are joining us today. Hey, we just want to give a shout out to everybody that's spending time with us. Our podcast continues to grow exponentially, and it's because of you, the people that are choosing to be better leaders. Right now, we're listened to in 36 states in the continental U.S., and 8 countries throughout the world: Germany, Netherlands, Australia, New Zealand, you name it. If you'd have told me back in February that, we're growing like that, is pretty cool. And so our encouragement to you is just to keep listening, keep tuning in to what we're talking about. Our guests just continue to grow. So don't forget to click that subscribe button and check out the link to our podcast, where you can get the full length version of the things that we're talking about today. It's a great opportunity for you to be the best version of you. You're going to leave here, I swear, feeling repurposed and refreshed, ready to take on the challenges of leadership.
I know I certainly do. After every time that we get done talking to one of our guests, it really just allows you to just kind of, like you said, just kind of refocus your thoughts and ideas, how you want to be a better leader. And, it's like I say every week, Tim, sometimes it's just like, I don't think we can top our last guest until we have our next guest. And,
Right.
it feels just pretty amazing to talk to all these, exceptional leaders that, we're having the privilege to have a conversation with. So, and obviously privileged that they've chosen to spend that time with us. So speaking of our next guest here, Coach Jim Aikens was just an outstanding individual, someone that you have personal experience with,
Yep.
as a former coach of yourself, right?
Correct. Yeah, he was the throws coach, football coach, and science teacher at Trump High School in my formative years when I was in high school until 1993. But then he continued to coach there for a long time. He's now the throws coach at Burlington Central. He's a Illinois track and field and cross country Hall of Famer, and he's written numerous articles. You name it, he's been there. And we really wanted to break down the subject of how leadership is learning.
And absolutely, he does an outstanding job there. Some of our 3 takeaways that I took away from talking with Coach Aikens was, number one is experience is what you get when you don't get what you need, kind of deal, or get what you want. So that was something that just kind of one of those moments was that we'll get into that was pretty powerful for me. The second one is fair is not equal. And that's something that I've said in my program, and I know that you're a strong believer in that as well. And the last one is being reflective is vital to growth. And those are that kind of goes right in line with the title of this episode with Coach Aikens. But what are your thoughts on those 3 takeaways, Tim?
Well, the first one, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. Boy, that's a slap in the face for everybody, because it tells you, you got to be willing to learn, you got to be willing to grow, and you're not always going to be on the right side of the win column, if you will. Doesn't matter what you're in or what you're doing, you've got to be able to handle what's coming at you. You've heard, E+R equals O in so many different arenas from Tim and Brian Kite, and
Yep.
This is really that. It's your response to the event that's put in front of you to hopefully get an outcome that works for you.
Absolutely. One of the things that, I was really surprised by is it's powerful how a sentence can just be switched around a little bit and worded a little bit differently and have such a impactful meaning on it. Cause, we've all heard the E+R equals O before from, Tim and Brian Kite, which is essentially what we're talking about here. But it was just worded a little bit differently. And I was like, it was kind of almost like a gut punch to me when I heard it.
Yeah. Because you're like, oh
yeah,
that's true. I'm learning.
Yeah.
Yep. I didn't get that. But it's also a great message to share with your players, people that you work with, because helping people learn how to respond to events that don't meet their desired outcome is really powerful. And he does a great job of talking about that. Number 2, Coach, you mentioned that fair is not equal. But what did that mean to you?
Well, it's something that, one of the things that, I learned pretty early in my coaching career and teaching career is something that's called empathy. And, empathy really is, you're talking about, putting yourself in someone else's shoes and understanding that not every situation is going to look the same for every individual that you come across. And so there's not a cookie cutter, response to every situation. So you may have an individual that has a different home life than someone else. So, it's not that you're allowing them to skate by and you're not holding them to a standard, but you're understanding that their situation's a little bit differently than maybe others on your team or in your job, business, school, whatever it may be. And you're just, trying to be conscientious of that and open-minded to that. And, just essentially just like you're being empathic to those people so that you come across. And so that was something that I really took home with me, was when he mentioned fair is not equal.
And then the last one, number 3, reflecting is vital to growth. What a powerful statement, in terms of how leaders learn. That's been powerful for me as I've become a head coach, and as a teacher. They always tell you to reflect and everything, but until you actually sit down and write down and truly think about what you've gone through, what you did, what you got out of it, you're not going to grow. And until you learn how to get a response that's more appropriate, you're not going to grow as a leader. And he really broke that down, how he grew as a leader from reflecting. He wished he was more agreeable. He wished he didn't yell as much. He wished he'd been a little bit more willing to listen.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, look where he is now, and his record, if you listen to that podcast and you see his resume, it's incredible.
Yeah, it speaks for itself, right? But obviously not going to give away all the nuggets here, but because we want you to tune in to the podcast and listen to everything that Coach Aikens has shared with us. But, I think that is, maybe something easier to do for when you get a little bit older and a little bit more reflective and understanding. When you come in, a lot of times younger coaches want to come in and they want to change the world right away, and they think they can, it's kind of like turning around that big ocean tanker in the ocean. It doesn't happen just like that. It takes a while to make those turns, and for him to show that reflectiveness and looking back and admitting those mistakes, which is something that, we've talked about on our podcast before, really was, that's what more coaches need to hear, I think, and more, just people that are dealing with, individuals that may work under them or work with them or anything like that. And so I was very appreciative to hear Coach Aikens talk about that.
Well, if you like what you're hearing so far about how Coach Aikens is talking about leadership is learning, you're going to want to tune into the full 1-hour podcast we had. And you can get all the nuggets there. Be sure to subscribe below to this YouTube channel. Next week, we're going to be airing Coach Robert Pomzak from St. Charles North High School and Randy Jackson from Texas, who's got all sorts of knowledge on building culture. Actually, both coaches are phenomenal at building culture, and both are, in my opinion, are diametrically different.
Yeah, and I think you're gonna see that, and I think that's what's really special about this next week is, there's not one standard approach to leadership or building culture, and you're going to see two different ends of the spectrum next week on how that can be done, and quite honestly how it can be done successfully, because both coaches have been very successful at the places that they've been at and are currently at. So I'm very excited to spend some time with Coach Pomzak and Coach Jackson next week, and obviously share that with all of you listeners out there.
Well, thanks for tuning in today. We've really enjoyed breaking down the last podcast of the week. Coach Jim Aikens talking about leadership is learning. And so let's keep chasing life, leadership, and greatness in all that we do. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.